Gracie Jiu Jitsu rocks. Welcome to the Gracie Jiu Jitsu Rocks podcast, a podcast dedicated to Gracie Jiu Jitsu and all things Gracie, including self-defense, competition, anti-bullying, women's self-defense and empowerment, nutrition, and most especially, the people involved in Gracie Jiu Jitsu. This podcast is for the average Joe. It's for anyone who practices, trains, teaches, or just loves to talk about or hear about Gracie Jiu Jitsu. We'll explore the lives of Gracie Jiu Jitsu practitioners, how they got involved in the art, and what effect it's had on their lives. So buckle up and enjoy the ride. Welcome to episode 7 of the Gracie Jiu Jitsu Rocks podcast. I'm your host, Marty Josie, and thanks for listening. On today's episode, we'll be speaking with Kris Ratte, owner and head instructor of Timmons Gracie Jiu Jitsu in Timmins, Ontario, Canada. But before we do that, let's start with today's quote. Today's quote is from Renzo Gracie, and it is, "My opponent is my teacher. My ego is my enemy." And I couldn't agree more with that quote. That's a really good one. As always, if you want to make a comment about the quote or if this speaks to you, you can go to the website at www.graciejujitsurocks.com and post a comment. Or you can give us a call and leave a voice message at 919-251-5053. Okay, I'd also like to just talk for a moment about a trend that's happening, or it seems to be happening, that I think is pretty cool, and that is the trend of professional wrestlers, the WWE stars, learning Gracie Jiu Jitsu or Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. First one that comes to mind is Eve Torres, who used to be a WWE diva. I'm sure most everyone out there is familiar with her, and she just recently married Henner Gracie. Shout out to both of them and big congratulations. And Eve has been training Jiu-Jitsu for some time at the Gracie Academy and has a blue belt and is very responsible and instrumental in spreading the word with the Women's Empowered program from the Academy as well. Another WWE star who has taken up Jiu-Jitsu is CM Punk, and he's been training at the Gracie Academy. I met him last year at the Destin Immersion Camp in Destin, Florida, and so he's been involved in Gracie Jiu-Jitsu as well. I just read where Triple H is also doing Jiu-Jitsu, and the fourth one that is Baptista. And Baptista recently was promoted to purple belt through Cesar Gracie, and I'd like to play a little segment of a video about that.
Since 2010, I wanted to start picking up jiu-jitsu. Cesar Gracie was a very well-respected person in the MMA world, and also, of course, the martial arts world. I really wanted to work with him, so I was lucky enough through a friend to hook up with Nick Diaz, one of his fighters, and he invited me to come out to the academy.
The Gracie style of jiu-jitsu it's about effectiveness. Dave, he's a very quick learner. He's an athletic guy. You can see right away when a guy gets it.
And I moved up in his belt system.
Today is a good day. Proud to promote somebody training for quite a few years with us. I'm going to promote today David Batista.
purple is a professional belt. That's when you know what you're doing. That's when you know the art.
Belt comes new responsibilities.
Yeah. Caesar doesn't just pass out belts. I mean, if you get a belt here, you earn it, you work for it, and you deserve it.
And then it goes on to show him going through the gauntlet, as some schools do, where the promoted person has to walk down the line, and on either side other people are have their belts in hand and are smacking them on the chest and the back and kind of going through the fire, so to speak. Anyway, I've never personally been a big fan of professional wrestling per se, but I have always admired their athleticism. There's no doubt, no one can deny just what great athletes these professional wrestlers are. So, and I do think it's a really cool thing that a lot of them are taking up Gracie Jiu Jitsu. Just shows that they understand the importance and the value of Jiu Jitsu. So, pretty cool. Okay, without further ado, let's meet today's guest, Kris Ratte. Okay, so my guest today is Kris Ratte, who is the owner and head instructor of Timmons Gracie Jiu Jitsu in Timmins, Ontario, Canada. So welcome, Kris.
Thank you so much for having me.
How are things up in the Great White North, my friend?
Cold.
Now, am I correct in using that expression, the Great White North, to mean all of Canada, or is there just parts of it or areas that you use that for?
Well, I'm in Northern Ontario, so it's pretty much that 8 months a year here.
Oh, wow. That's brutal.
Quite.
I'm originally from Florida, so that would be really rough for me.
Yeah, we have beautiful summers, but you're talking about a month and a half, 2 months of nice summer, and the rest is, kind of gets a little miserable.
Wow. All right, Kris, let's start by just having you tell us a little bit about your background, your history, your martial arts journey, and how it evolved, and how it got you where you are today.
All right, cool. So I am 30 years old. I'm an extremely athletic person. And basically, when I was a kid, I played every single sport, and the one I was most passionate about was hockey, especially being in Canada. And through hockey, I was always very good, but one of the last picks for like the all-star team, or I would just not make it, And this kind of led to a lot of unintentional bullying, stuff that I didn't realize. So between grade 8 and 9, just going into high school, is probably when the bullying got at its worst. So I made a decision. I was like, man, I got to do something about this. And I told myself I was going to whoop their asses. That's what I told them. So I said, I'm going to join a martial arts school. So I went to karate, and I chose that over hockey, much to my parents didn't like this idea. And so I went to karate for like 2 weeks, and I went there for obviously the wrong reasons. And I think the instructor sensed this, and it was kind of miserable for 2 weeks. So I just literally quit that and said, you know what, pull up your pants and go back to hockey. And I just endured another year and a half of hockey until I had enough of it, and then I left that. So that's how my first, introduction to martial arts was a really short one. And then after finishing high school, going away to college, I went back home looking for a job. And again, hockey is another part of this. I was a hockey fan, and hockey was on strike. And while hockey was on strike, we started doing other things. And essentially, we were playing a lot of poker because it was blowing up. And while poker was on, naturally, the UFC was playing. So as the UFC was playing, I was like, man, that looks awesome. I was like 22, 23, in good shape, good athlete. And I'm like, man, I'd love to do that stuff. So I decided I needed, a hobby. And I guess based on my previous 2 weeks I had with karate, I didn't want to do karate because I didn't like the idea of the katas and that stuff. So I joined a Taekwondo school because there was only karate and Taekwondo where I lived, and I'd heard Taekwondo had a lot of sparring. And again, that's all I wanted to do. I quickly realized that Taekwondo was very similar to karate with, kind of Korean words. And but I enjoyed it. The instructor was one of my friends, and I had some other friends there, and I quickly rose through the ranks with Taekwondo. Took about 3.5 years until I was ready to test for my black belt. And then at some point in my journey of Taekwondo, we got invited to a Brazilian Jiu Jitsu seminar with a Timmons Gracie black belt named Pat Cooligan. And he was actually teaching one of my college roommates, who was then a blue belt and is now a purple belt, and was actually an MMA fighter working his way to making a living doing MMA. And he was doing very well. And this was very interesting because my friend who was doing very well in MMA, his name is Remy Morvan. We grew up pretty much best friends, and we're in the same circles, and we played a lot of the same sports. And I was always a little bigger and stronger than Remy, and we were very competitive together, and he would probably laugh. I would say I got the upper edge in most of the sports on him. But we, at the end of the seminar, rolled, and he arm locked me in like 5 seconds.
Wow.
And it was hilarious. I was like, man, this is crazy. And I was, I don't know what I was, I think a green belt in Taekwondo at the time, still beginner. But I had no idea what the ground was, and I was blown away with the effectiveness of it, and the fact that my friend just completely could have killed me in 5 seconds was amazing. So the seminar was a hit with Pat Cooligan, one of his disciples, basically his top student, Matthew Hache, who's a black belt now under Renzo. And it was crazy. It was 6 hours over 2 days, and it blew my mind. And after that seminar, we had decided we got to get these guys back. So we brought Pat and his students, Matt and Remy, back to our community, which was 10 hours away from their school, I think 4 or 5 times. And we just kept learning through seminars, and it was interesting. I took a lot of notes, like just words, whereas Remy's dad, who's actually a karate 5th degree black belt in karate, took like stickman notes. So we would merge our notes together. So he would,
wow, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, he would draw stickmen, and I would draw I would write all the details. So then, we would just practice those, every now and then, just lay down some mats and do it. And then Remy's dad actually found Gracie University. He actually found it, and he said, well, what about this? So I took a look at it, and I was like, wow, this is incredible. Because like I said, originally after the whole poker boom and watching UFC, I guess that's what got me into the martial arts, was watching the UFC. And I was like, man, I want to do that. So my first introduction with Pat, Remy, and Matthew was amazing. I absolutely loved it. And then when I saw Gracie University, the lesson that really got me was I think it's lesson number 5, punch block series.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, wow, that's crazy. Most people say trap and roll. Me, it was a punch block series. I was amazed with how effective the guard was, and how you can stay safe from punches and that stuff. So I started kind of doing both curriculums. We would keep attending their seminars, and we'd visit their school 10 hours away, and one of their affiliates 5 hours away, bring them up for seminars, and continue at Gracie University. But obviously Gracie University was much easier because there was no traveling involved, and we could just lay down some mats and do it. So yeah, we kept going with that, Gracie University. We eventually opened a Gracie Garage and just invited whoever to come out. And we lived in a really small community. I'm talking 7,500 people. And we had probably over 70 people, kids and adults, pass by when we said that, we're looking for training partners for Gracie Academy, and it was crazy. So that's how I was basically put into an instructor type of role, with the Gracie Garage. And because we had so many people, we couldn't really follow the structure that they have on Gracie University. They have like a 108-day format, and I couldn't follow that because everyone was sporadic with their training. So I did a bit of Googling and found that they had a 23 lesson format, which is what we use at the certified training centers. And I said, well, I'm going to adopt this format, and started teaching that way. And it was amazing. And I absolutely loved the whole teaching aspect to it. And eventually what happened was my girlfriend at the time got me a surprise vacation to Los Angeles. And
wow, nice.
Yeah, I was sick. So I was pretty stoked about it. So immediately I said, hey, do you mind if I have a private with Rener Gracie? And we knew it was, pretty costly. But I was like, it's not so much about, the techniques I'm going to learn. It was just the experience of spending some one-on-one time, with a jiu-jitsu master that, I've looked up to through video, for a while. So my girlfriend was like, yeah, let's do it. So I said, perfect. So we fly to Los Angeles, and we didn't know anything about Los Angeles at all. We had done like Las Vegas and other vacations, but we didn't know Los Angeles was just like crazy spread out, and downtown is not really the place to be, It's all about the beach. So we had like this idea that it would be like Las Vegas, where it's like the strip and that's where you hang out. So we stayed downtown, which is the financial district, and there's really not much going on there. And well, to what I know anyways. So we're visiting Los Angeles. We decided to take a bus to the Gracie Academy, and we had done some online research to see what bus we should take. We had to take the Artesia Boulevard bus. Well, we took the wrong bus, and we ended up, like, instead of a 45-minute drive to the academy, it was like 2.5 hours. And we got a whole trip through Los Angeles. We got to see like every suburb, It was pretty scary. And we got dropped off in Compton, and I have tons of money in my pockets, and I'm dressed like a complete tourist. And we're stuck in Compton for like an hour. And the bus driver, we were hanging out beside him, asking him like, what bus do we get on? And I said, well, can we walk from here? He says, do not walk. Like he was very adamant. He's like, no, you stay here, and you make sure you get on this bus. Don't look at anyone wrong. I'm like, wow. I was like,
yeah, that's probably great advice.
Yeah. So it's pretty funny. So by the time the other bus comes, I'm like, man, I'm gonna be late for my private. And I ended up being a half hour late for the private, but I had called the academy, and and they set it up. So my hour-long private got turned into a half-hour private. And on other things too, the private ended up being with Hiron instead of Rener. Primary reason was, I think Rener had gotten a call from this gentleman who owns like a professional polo team. And all of a sudden the guy was like, hey, Rener, can you come to my house and do privates for like a week or something like that? So Rener's like, do you mind doing the privates with my brother Hiron? I'm like, yeah, of course. I'm cool with it. So anyways, luckily with the online videos and that stuff, I already knew exactly where to go at the Gracie Academy. So I literally walk in, run to the change room, put my gi on, and I go into the private room, and Hiron's there waiting. And I was immediately starstruck. It was hilarious. Because I'm not like someone who gets really nervous and buckles under any pressure type of thing. I'm actually very good at like winging it. And when I met Hiron, I was like, oh my God, I can't believe this is Hiron Gracie, So I was completely like starstruck, but his disposition and the way he spoke to me, and it probably took like 5-10 minutes, and then I felt like completely at ease, especially with the jiu-jitsu. So we just started rolling a little bit. He just asked me what I wanted to do. I was like, I hope to test for my blue belt this week, but I have no idea if I'm ready, so I just want to roll and see what's up. So he rolled me a little bit, and after like 5-10 minutes, he's like, bro, you're good to go. And then he started teaching me some advanced moves, and went from there. And then we spent the whole week there, and Hiron was amazing to us. He brought us out, we went to the movies, went to all these restaurants together. We went to watch stand-up comedy with Joe Rogan. So it was a pretty cool experience. And at the end of the week, Hiron threw the blue belt around me during the combatives class, which was pretty sick. And I told him, I was like, man, I really enjoy teaching back home in the Gracie garage. And I know you guys have some type of instructor program. How does that work? And they hadn't had one in a little while, because the last one they did, while you were in the same class as me, there's a few years between the instructor programs. And essentially what happened was they were doing an online program. So I was waiting for that. So we're sitting down on the couches in the lobby at the Gracie Academy, and I'm telling him about this whole interest in teaching and all that stuff. So he takes out the instructor manual and takes out, in particular, the slice presentation formula. And he reads it to me, hands it over to me, he says, read this. And like 5 minutes later, he rips the paper out of my hand and says, okay, what did it say? I'm like, what? So he tests me on the spot. Like I said, I don't usually like get too nervous, but I immediately like went completely like ghost. And I was like, what? I was freaking out. And so he's asking me these questions, and we're going through the slice presentation formula, which is basically, you know, what makes the Gracie Academy levels and beyond any other, in my opinion, in terms of teaching. But, you know, and he's drilling me. And at the end of it, he says, you know, take a little picture of this. So I took a picture with my cell phone. And when I went back to the Gracie Garage, I started teaching according to the formula. And I had already adopted the 23 lesson format. And I noticed a huge difference in the way my students in the Gracie Garage improved just based on the teaching method. And right there, I was like, man, this is crazy. I love this. So, man, it's interesting. So that's how I kind of got into the whole instructor thing. And eventually, you know, I decided to take the instructor program. But prior to the instructor program, what happened here? So my girlfriend at the time was living where I live now in Timmons, Ontario. She took a leave of absence from her job to move where I lived, which was about, you know, like I said, 2 hours away. And she started a little business there. And I had a really good job. After her year leave of absence, we decided that, you know, she should go back to her job because it was very good, like financially and benefits and all that stuff. And then I would try to transfer my job from where I lived to Timmons. And that didn't work out too well for me. And we went about 3-4 months of like, you know, travel relationship. And we kind of talked, and I said, you know what, like, what if I tried teaching jiu-jitsu for a living, you know? And it's not just like a hobby thing that I do. And she was like, yeah, let's do it. So we went crazy to town on this ridiculous business plan, like 65-page business plan. Went after, you know, grants, government grants, and got some funding and all kinds of things. Scouted a location in Timmons, and next I knew it, I quit my job, which was I was an IT guy working for 8 schools in a school board, and I had a vehicle, I had a cell phone, had a laptop, everything given to me, and I had great pension, great everything, and just quit cold turkey and moved to Timmons, opened my version of the Gracie Academy, and you know, after about a month, she ended up quitting her job because it had blown up. We were doing pretty well. We're doing really well, but you know, like any starting business, it was we went through some really tough times at first, even though it was growing and growing, but it needed to grow more because we kind of started too big with my business or our business. We kind of started way too big. If you would have came to our original location, or if you would have seen pictures or heard stories through the Gracie Academy, we had a church. We had a huge church, and it literally was almost the same size as the Torrance Academy. And luckily, Hiron and Hollick both visited, so they'd be able to vouch for it. And we had Ricardo Bayona, one of their black belts, come for a seminar, and he said it felt like their original academy on Carson Street in Torrance. So, you know, we had some really good feedback on it. Unfortunately, the size of the place and the rate that I was charging and being very rookie in business, we weren't making enough money to sustain the building. And it ultimately led to some crazy financial problems. And ultimately we went bankrupt because of it. But I'm very much a persistent person, you know, like I don't give up, and I'm extremely passionate about jiu-jitsu, and I'm like, there's no way I'm going to let this, you know, knock me down. So we changed locations, and now we're downtown, a much smaller location, a lot less overhead, and now the business is doing, you know, absolutely amazing. But yeah, man, there's lots of twists and turns in this whole story, right?
Absolutely. And I did see some pictures of that original place. It was just absolutely incredible. But certainly understand how adjustments had to be made, and you go where the turns and twists take you. And it sounds like you've really got the fire, and you're willing to do anything to succeed. So I really commend you on that. Back up a second about when you were out at the ICP instructor certification program in LA,
Yes.
or Torrance.
Yes.
I met you there, and one thing that stands out in my mind is they were in this, the huge room and all these people that some were already instructors who came to help, and some were like us trying to get there. And they asked for a volunteer just to come out and show a technique, and they were basically going to critique it in front of everyone. And I'm like, I'm not raising my hand. And you were the one who had the courage, raised your hand, went out there. I don't remember the technique, but I remember you did a great job, and they gave you some awesome feedback. So it really stuck out in my mind that, man, that guy's pretty brave. He doesn't mind putting it out there as long as he knows he's going to get some good growth from it. So that was great.
Yeah, get this. This is the funny part. I actually didn't volunteer.
Oh, really?
Because that was actually my third trip to LA. Because my first trip was for the Blue Belt and to just, visit the academy and that stuff. I went back with my then girlfriend, and she tested for her Blue Belt the second time. This was my third trip. This one I went solo because it was just for the ICP. So during my second trip, I actually was lucky enough to stay with Hiron and his wife Victoria. So I developed, I guess, a connection with with Hiron and them. And this was funny. I didn't have a laptop, or they didn't have Gracie University available on mobile devices yet. And I had just the manual and what I was teaching in the Gracie Garage. And luckily, I already had tons of experience teaching in the Gracie Garage, like I mentioned. And so I remember I was extremely tired after the Friday ICP day. It was extremely draining, right?
Oh, yeah.
Know it. So I get back to the hotel, it was the Aries, and I tell myself, okay, I'm going to have a meal, I'm going to clean up, and then I'm just going to go crazy and just study, And they had given us 4 techniques, if you remember. We had 4 techniques. They didn't tell us technique that we had to teach. So we had to prepare for all 4 of them. But I'm like, man, I didn't have DVDs, I didn't have a laptop, and I didn't have mobile. So I had no access to any videos. It's like, man, I have to go based on literature and just my head. Well, needless to say, I told myself I was going to study a few hours. I passed out in 15 minutes. I was out cold in my bed, so I said, okay, I'm just going to wake up early and do it. No, that didn't happen. I woke up, had breakfast, went to the academy, and I'm literally on the mat losing my mind, freaking out, oh my God, I'm not prepared at all, I'm not prepared. And like I said, I'm extremely good at winging things. And I think because of the connection I developed with them, or maybe because of my my online submission, the videos, to get invited to the final evaluation. Either way, they were looking around. They said, does someone want to volunteer? And they said, and literally there's how many? We were 60 something. It was
there were quite a few. And
I'm looking around, I'm leaning forward and looking everywhere, and no one's volunteering, right? And they say, Kris, and there was 5 Chris's. And I had a gi, my gi was a little big for me, and I kind of ducked my head inside the gi like a turtle, looking down. And then they say Ratte. I'm like, what? I was like, oh no. So I stand up, and I'm starting to walk towards the middle, and I'm shaking. I'm like, oh my goodness. And then Henner says we should make him teach something that he didn't prep for. And in my head, I'm like, no. And then Hiron and Henner start speaking in Portuguese. So I have no idea what they're saying. And then they ended up making me teach a lesson that, we were prepared for, which was just the basic spin for the straight arm lock from the mount. And that's how I met a guy that I communicated with online. He teaches in the UK at GJJR, Josh Taylor. And that was cool. I remember that.
Shout out to Josh.
Yes. Yeah, it was cool. I remember every time I teach that class, I say that story.
That's an awesome story, man. And what a great journey you've had, it sounds like. Fantastic. Let's talk a little bit about your... do you have any family, or you mentioned several times your a girlfriend at the time. Is that who's now your wife?
Yeah, we're married. Unfortunately, we're recently separated though. But she trains jiu-jitsu. She's a blue belt, and she's actually really amazing at jiu-jitsu. But she's now experiencing different aspects of her life right now.
Okay. Well, life takes us in different places and different directions sometimes.
Correct. And actually, I can thank jiu-jitsu for helping me through the whole situation anyway. So it's great.
Absolutely. So what's jiu-jitsu like in Canada? I know Canada is huge, but your knowledge, just kind of a general synopsis of what it's like there. Is it huge? Is it growing fast? Just share a little bit of information on that if you have.
Yeah, I think it's definitely growing. It's getting big. Like I chose Northern Ontario. I could have went to Southern Ontario to a much bigger market to open my school. But at the end of the day, you know, I'm a blue belt, and as much as the program and the teaching methodologies are huge, I did not want to compete against, you know, like other black belts and stuff like that. So I chose Northern Ontario. But Northern Ontario itself is starting to get, you know, tons of schools all within a few hours of each other. Literally, like one of my friends has a school like down the street. But yeah, jiu-jitsu is getting bigger, and we can thank the popularity of, you know, the internet, you know, because everyone's learning through, you know, various sources online. And the Gracie Academy in particular is starting to blow up, and I'm very excited about that. The idea of having more certified training centers in Canada, because I was the second one, and now there's a bunch of us. So I'm excited about it, but it's blowing up for sure. Martial arts is huge, and if you ever see like UFCs, they always talk about how Canadian fans are crazy for.
Yeah, I've seen some of the UFCs in Canada, and they were definitely into it, as you can tell by watching. I had a chance to visit Montreal a couple years ago, and really enjoy that. Beautiful city. I'd like to see more of Canada.
Yeah, go in the summer.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this was late spring, so it was perfect. So let me ask you, Kris, what's been the most interesting or exciting thing about studying and practicing and teaching Gracie Jiu Jitsu?
Yeah, interesting, exciting thing. The one thing I found the most interesting is how I've always wanted to travel. And jiu-jitsu has, you know, kind of taken me, you know, like I'm going to Florida for the immersion camp this year. I went to Florida a few years ago for the immersion camp. I go to Los Angeles regularly. Obviously, this is eventually going to take me to Brazil. But, you know, jiu-jitsu is going to allow me to see the world, you know, so it's incredible, you know. I don't know if I would have done this otherwise. You know, I probably would have done just hot places, you know, like Dominican Republic, Jamaica, stuff like that, you know. But
right.
Jiu-jitsu is going to allow me to go everywhere, you know. Like I'm extremely excited about going to visit James Smart, another shout out in South Africa, you know. Like that's a place I've always loved the idea of going. I'd love to go to the UK. It's cool to have certified training centers everywhere and that there's family everywhere. So jiu-jitsu, I find that exciting. But in terms of like what's cool about studying and practicing it, I love the creativity and the effectiveness of the art. I really like, you know, the fact it's art is so true. And when I see like jiu-jitsu, when it's like a slow roll, I find it beautiful. You know, I love movement. I love, you know, just constant chaos. And it's I find that the most exciting, coolest part of jiu-jitsu is the beauty of the art when it's done, you know, very well at a high level.
Yeah, well stated. I couldn't agree more. It's such it's kind of ironic that something that is, you know, meant for protection and it can be violent, obviously. It's a martial art, but there's such a beauty and the relaxed flow of it, and it's just really cool. If you could train with anyone, living or deceased, Kris, who would that be?
Man, I got a few people. Obviously deceased, you know, Helio. Everyone would love to train with the Grandmaster, Helio Gracie. I would love to have trained with Holes Gracie, because apparently he was like, you know, an amazing innovator. And alive, right now there's kind of like, you know, any member of you know, the Gracie family, anyone who's from like the original roots, I would love to train with them. But everyone hears about like the mythical creature that is Rickson Gracie.
Yeah.
Lately I'm on this kick, and I could thank these YouTube videos made by Stuart Cooper.
Oh yeah, I love those.
He made these videos about Nicholas Gregoriades, and I'm on like his hype right now. And if you check out his video, The Spirit of Jiu-Jitsu on YouTube, and It's one of my favorite videos right now. And I had a little conversation with Nick on Facebook a few weeks ago, and I really like his whole mindset. He kind of, you know, it's if I'd like to train with him, I'd like to train with Hodger, Rickson, any of them, Helson, Hoyler, you know. I'd love to train with all these guys, and the Mendes brothers, and you know, all these people, Andre Galvão, you know. I'd love to train with, you know, any high level person, because everyone has a different story and a different path, and I love hearing the path. And everyone is so different in their style of jiu-jitsu. So, yeah.
Absolutely. There's so many facets and different stories, and then coming from different people and different organizations, and it's another beautiful thing that you can learn from everybody. You can learn from so many different places, people, and viewpoints with regarding jiu-jitsu. So, excellent. Okay. Do you have a favorite activity besides jiu-jitsu? Like when you're not on the mat, what are your hobbies?
Yeah, I'm so crazy busy with the business that right now I can't really participate in too much else. But as I mentioned earlier, I'm a huge athlete. So anytime I have a chance to play any sport, basketball, volleyball, hockey, golf, anything, I'm a huge fan of sports. I'm also a huge fan, because I'm so busy, of doing absolutely nothing.
Absolutely.
I'm a big fan of that. But I do have a huge Alaskan Malamute dog, and he's like my best buddy. So other than jiu-jitsu, when I'm not doing absolutely nothing, I'm hanging out with him, hanging out with friends. But I'd say, I guess, sports.
Okay. Nice. Well, I like how you mentioned doing the absolutely nothing, because too many people don't see the value in really good quality downtime. We're always on the go and always on, and pushing ourselves, as we should, to be successful. But it's so important to unwind, unplug, and just relax. So good that you're doing that, brother. I know you've been up to a couple other things lately off the mat. Well, not really off the mat for this one. You recently did or hosted the Heart and Stroke Rollathon. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, it was something that we organized through Heart and Stroke. They came to us looking for some type of fundraiser. So we're like, what can we do? And it actually, we thought of a rollathon, and it came down to, I think, again, James Smart did something similar for cancer like a year ago, where he rolled for 24 hours straight. And I was like, man, this guy's insane. So I was like, let's see if I can do it. So we just made it for a 12-hour rollathon, and it was really cool. We had a lot of people come and raised a bunch of money for the Heart and Stroke Foundation. So yeah, we did that. It was really cool. I'm looking forward to doing more things like that.
That's really great, man. That's really great. I think more of us should do more things like that. Team up our passion of jiu-jitsu with a great cause and make a difference. Another thing you've done recently, I saw on your Facebook page, is got this really awesome tattoo.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
Yeah, I got this. My good friend from back home, we grew up together. Pretty much best friends, I guess. Tyler from Push and Ink. There you go. There's another shout out. I've been wanting this half sleeve for a long time, and it's kind of along the lines of what The Rock has, Dwayne Johnson. It's Polynesian tribal. So I was sitting in a chair for 6 hours getting this half sleeve, crazy amount of detail in it. And I still have, a few pieces left to add to it. But it's a cool tattoo, and I like the whole Polynesian, I would say that their culture, very warrior-like and but peaceful at the same time. So the tattoo, it's really cool because you can look at it, and every single person will have a different interpretation of what it means, So it's like someone says, what does it mean to you? And I'm like, man, how do I feel today?
Wow.
So,
that's pretty cool. You'll never get bored with it, right?
Correct.
It is one of the best and coolest tattoos I've ever seen. So you made a great choice. Very, very cool.
Cool.
So, pardon me. What's the most important aspect or thing about Gracie Jiu-Jitsu to you? And tell us how Gracie Jiu-Jitsu has really made an impact in your life.
Yeah, the most important thing in Jiu-Jitsu to me is being in control of your ego. And how has it affected my life? It's helped me definitely control my ego. As I mentioned earlier, I have this really crazy no-quit mentality. And this can go back to my mom and dad, and I love them so much. But it's funny the way that my dad was an amazing athlete, ridiculous athlete. Whatever he touched, it was like gold, and he was better than everybody else at it. So I guess there was a little bit of pressure on me to be extremely good at sports too. And he was all about hockey. He was amazing in hockey, but he was good at everything else. But when it came to basketball, I thought that was my sport, So I'm playing basketball, and we play the game 21, and we would literally play 21, and we would have to break the ice, so the first person makes a hoop, gets to start scoring, but he would break the ice on his first shot and literally be at the free throw line and sink like how many he needed to do to get 21, and he would beat me 21-0.
Wow.
And he would give me the ball and like, you know, sarcastically say like, keep practicing, son. And you know, it's funny because like it'd almost be like a form of like bullying, really, you know. But like everything's bullying today. But whatever, that's a whole other topic.
Right.
Yeah, but that kind of led to my no quit mentality, and I guess it was good and bad at the same time, because it's amazing because, you know, like if you try to take me down, you know, in anything in life, and then I'm not going to quit, I'm going to come back. But what happened at some point in my life too was it made me come back so hard. So let's say we're playing whatever, like racket sport, let's play squash or tennis or whatever, you know. I'm really not good at those sports though. But if you were to like beat me at something like squash and you're like a regular at it, and you just smash me, what it does is it strikes this fire, and I start practicing like ridiculous. And so much so, and I have it in the back of my head that I'm going to practice so hard that the next time I beat you, I'm going to beat you so hard that you're never going to want to play that sport again. And that's kind of like the negative part of that no quit mentality. Where jiu-jitsu has helped me with that is you can't be like that, you know, because you can practice for years and have someone that's like way smaller, not athletic whatsoever, and completely unassuming, just completely be able to murder you in a matter of seconds. So what's the most important thing is controlling your ego. And what has it done for me? It helps me control my ego day in and day out. I'm constantly humbled by my students and by anybody else I train with. And I no longer look at failure anymore, period. There's no such thing as failure. And I say to my students all the time, it's like the other day, I had my students just hold the side mount, just some beginners. I said, hey, listen, okay, hold the side mount. The person at the bottom, get out. And the class was all about, you know, learning how to maintain side mount control against like ridiculous strong person, you know. And a lot of people failed at controlling the side mount. But I was like, no, you did not fail. You know what I mean? You still won. So I was talking about like, you know, I was like, yeah, even if there's a big guy on top of me and he's smashing me, I was like, I'm still winning. And everyone, like, it's funny to see the puzzled faces, you know. And I can thank jiu-jitsu for that, because no matter what was jiu-jitsu, you learn that everything is about learning, and there's no such thing as winning and losing. So it's all about you.
Beautiful, man. That's a great mindset, and more of us throughout the jiu-jitsu community need to certainly key into that and adopt it, because it is about no ego, and it is about growing and learning and developing, and not be married to this win or lose mentality. So as long as you're thinking like that, it's always going to be fun. It's always going to be a great journey, you know, all the way through your life. So awesome. All right. So do you have a favorite quote or motto that inspires you or that you live by?
Yes. And it's funny. It's exactly what Taige said on your earlier podcast. I can thank you and Gracie for it. I just posted on my Facebook like a few days ago too. The quote, be connected but not attached. That quote has helped me get through so much in everything, you know. I use it a lot in my teachings, and it's really helped me with my recent, you know, marital problems.
Sure.
You know, with anything period in life, you know, you could just, that quote, that line is so deep, you know, and it could hit people so many different ways. But, you know, you want to be connected to the moment, but not too attached to it, because, you know, then that leads to like ego, and, you know, it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. So yeah, that quote, that really inspires me, you know, every day. And I constantly get reminded. I'm lucky that I get to do jiu-jitsu every day, all day, so that I'm reminded of it. You know, otherwise I'd probably have to write it down on a piece of paper and, you know, and just. That
would be a good tattoo to have as well.
Yeah.
You know, that is such a great quote, and I find myself having it pop up in my mind pretty often. And it's funny because when I'm aware of that, whatever situation I'm in seems to go really well. But when I lose sight of that, yeah, that's where, like you said, the ego comes in and things change. Right away they change in a bad way.
Yeah, there was something else that Henry Gracie said once at a belt ceremony in Torrance. And he said, people look for outside recognition, for recognition that should be found within. And that, but he's talking about the belts, about how people like chase belts, you know, going after the purple, going after the brown, that stuff. And, you know, it's another thing I like to always remind myself of, you know, because, you know, who cares about the belt really at the end of the day? And who cares about anything at the end of the day? Because the only person who should really, you know, affect you is yourself. So it's very interesting.
It's very interesting. I'm still working on that one, but like a lot of us are, but it's definitely somewhere I want to be, I want to get to, so I'll keep going. If you had one thing to tell someone who is considering starting Gracie Jiu Jitsu, what would that be, Kris?
Yeah, definitely start slow. Get really good at the basics. You'll quickly learn that as you move on through Jiu Jitsu, the game of Jiu Jitsu, the sportive aspect, you know, there are some people who are still using the basics extremely well. But if you were to watch like Jiu Jitsu, high level Jiu Jitsu now, you see like 50-50, Berimbolo. You see, you know, a lot of the crazy guards. And that stuff is beautiful. I absolutely love that stuff. I love practicing it. I love it when it's done to me. I love doing it to other people. But you can't understand all that crazy stuff unless you have a very firm understanding of the basics, you know? So get really good at the closed guard, you know? Get really good at like maintaining the 4 positions, you know, like the mount, the side mount, back mount, and what was the other one? Mount, side mount, back mount. And, you know, and obviously you need a good stand-up game too, but get really good at like, you know, surviving all the positions. And, you know, you're going to lose like crazy by doing that, but you're going to learn so much. But that's the main thing. Get good at the basics. And once you're good at that, and once you're good at surviving everything, then you'll eventually be able to get on top, you know? And then once you're on top, then start worrying about that. And then once you can start, you know, just defeating people like with the basics, then start playing with the sport guards and that stuff. Start playing with that stuff because that stuff is extremely fun and it really opens up the game, you know? So I'm a big fan of the open guard, and I'm a big fan of like, you know, Spider, De La Hiva, all that stuff, all this inverted stuff. And it's just, I find it's extremely playful. But, you know, if you want to get good at jiu-jitsu, you got to do the basics.
Okay. The basics got to be the foundation.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So anything else you'd like to share with us today, Kris, before we close?
No, that's pretty good, man. I thank you very much for doing this, you know.
Oh, my pleasure.
I think, you know, basically shoot out, you know, thanks to the Gracie family, all the people I've ever trained with, everyone who's ever taught me. You know, if it wasn't even down to my first ever karate instructor when I was in grade 8, you know, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing and having fun doing it and living the life that I live, you know. So, you know, so many names can go out there. You know, my first instructor in jiu-jitsu was Pat Coogan. Going down to, you know, even all the way up to, like, there's Timmons Gracie, if you go through the tree there. And then there's, you know, Hieron Henner, Master Horian, everybody who I've ever trained with. It's you know, just a lot of shout-outs would be the only thing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, you clearly are living the jiu-jitsu journey, man, and touching a lot of lives for the better. So keep doing what you're doing. Much respect to you. Tell us your website if anybody's in the area and wants to learn more about your CTC.
Definitely check out Timmons, so Timmins, GJJ.com is the website. I do a lot on Facebook, so facebook.com/TimmonsGJJ. Yeah, like that's basically it, you know. So if you're in Northern Ontario, come check us out. Definitely open doors, and yeah, let's train for sure.
Absolutely. Fantastic, brother. I appreciate your time and letting us all get to know more about your life and your journey. Really do appreciate it. It was very interesting.
Thank you, sir.
All right.
Take care.
Okay, take care, brother. Bye. Okay, before we get to the Make a Difference, Make an Impact segment, I'd like to ask you to do a few things for me if you're enjoying the podcast. And I have heard from a number of you that you are enjoying the podcast, and I really, that makes me feel really great. It's always good to have or to hear feedback, positive feedback about something that you're doing, so I appreciate that. Also want to tell you about a contest we're doing. So first, the favors. If you are enjoying the podcast, if you would go to iTunes, and while you're there, please subscribe to the show, as well as there's a place that you can rate the show and leave comments. So if you would, go ahead and rate the show. Obviously, rate it high if you're enjoying it, and leave a comment, and all that helps our standing, if you will, in iTunes. Also, please go to our Facebook page and like it. You can find it at Gracie Jiu Jitsu Rocks Podcast on Facebook. We also have a Twitter account at GJJR Rocks Podcast. I'm not terribly active with Twitter as of yet. I'm pretty new to it and still kind of learning my way around it, but you're certainly welcome to follow us on Twitter as well. Okay, now for the contest/teaser. Our next episode is going to feature a very special guest. Obviously, I think all my guests are very special, but this person's a little more well-known than my normal guests are. I'm going to play a short clip, and it has the person speaking. So the first person to hear this podcast and correctly identify who it is in the clip will win a T-shirt, a Jiu-Jitsu T-shirt. I can't really go into any more detail about the T-shirt as of yet because it would kind of give away who it is. So once you hear the clip, if you think you know who it is, you can go to the website at www.GracieJujitsuRocks, post your comment. You'll see a place for that. Or you can call 919-251-5053. And we'll play the clip now.
I am 4 times world champion, 3 times Abu Dhabi champion, 2 times Pan American champion, and Pride champion. I represent not only a discipline, I represent a dynasty.
Okay, if you think you know it, again, go to the website or call 919-251-5053. Good luck. Okay, moving on to our Make a Difference, Make an Impact segment. Today's topic is weatherproofing. The idea of weatherproofing as it pertains to peaceful living is a metaphor to explain one of our most neurotic, ungrateful tendencies. It comes from Dr. George Pansky. So just as we can weatherproof a home for the winter by looking for cracks, leaks, and imperfections, we can also weatherproof our relationships, even our lives, by doing the same thing. Essentially, weatherproofing means that you are on the careful lookout for what needs to be fixed or repaired. It's finding the cracks and flaws of life and either trying to fix them or at least point them out to others. Now, not only does this tendency alienate you from other people, it makes you feel bad too. It encourages you to think about what's wrong with everything and everyone, what you don't like. So rather than appreciating our relationships and our lives, weatherproofing encourages us to end up thinking that life isn't all it's cracked up to be. Nothing is ever good enough the way it is. In relationships, and when I say relationships, it can be any manner of relationships, friends, teachers, partners, whatever it may be. In relationships, weatherproofing typically plays itself out like this. You meet someone and all is well. You're attracted to his or her appearance, personality, intellect, sense of humor, or some combination of these traits. Initially, you not only approve of your differences with this person, you actually appreciate them. You might even be attracted to the person in part because of how different you are. You have different opinions, preferences, tastes, and priorities. After a while, however, you begin to notice little quirks about your new partner that you feel could be improved upon. You bring it to their attention. You might say, you sure have a tendency to be late, or I've noticed you don't read very much. The point is, you've begun what inevitably turns into a way of life, looking for and thinking about what you don't like about someone or something that isn't quite right. Now, obviously, an occasional comment, constructive criticism, or helpful guidance isn't cause for alarm, but occasional harmless comments have an insidious tendency to become a way of looking at life. When you're weatherproofing another human being, it says nothing about them, but it does define you as someone who needs to be critical. So whether you have a tendency to weatherproof your relationships, certain aspects of your life, or both, what you need to do is write off weatherproofing as a bad idea. As the habit creeps into your thinking, catch yourself and seal your lips. The less often you weatherproof your partner or your friends, the more you'll notice how super your life really is. And that's going to do it for this edition of the show. Thank you again for listening as always. Again, don't forget to do those few things that I ask you to do if you're enjoying the show. Always welcome your feedback and constructive criticism. If you know of someone that you feel like would be great to have on the show, don't hesitate to let me know. Thanks again for listening, and as always, I'll see you on the mat.